So, wood louvers, the slats only. Here's what your inverted V or chevron style looks like in a profile. Okay? And that would be oriented in this direction when you're installing it. And of course those nest together as I showed you earlier in the core. Then here is simply your high flow style. Right like that. It's the same sort of principle. And those markings there are just the staples that hold those slats in. So very typical sort of material. It'd be very unusual for anyone to buy the slats only, although I have had people do it because they've needed to apply louver slats into special projects that they were doing, augmenting something or making some sort of design in a door. Very infrequent, but we can sell you just the slats. Reach out to us should you want to source slats only. We've discussed the core only versus the kit, both very common. We have talked about the chevron style and the high airflow style. We've talked about the sizing of them, what the outside dimension is. We've talked about what the door cutout size is, and how to go about, attaching them. But let's talk about installation. When you're doing a louver, quite frankly, a router is really the preferred tool, whether it be a hand router or it be something much more sophisticated like a CNC router. Routers are great because they give you excellent results. Now, if you have a series of doors to do, and I've had people use circular saws to do these and jigsaws. I'm not a fan of any of those methods because they're just not the right tool. It's like changing a spark plug with a toothbrush. You can do it, it's just not the right tool. Circular saws aren't really great because you can't get a uniform cut all the way through the door because the blade is curved. Jigsaws are a poor idea because you need a real short jigsaw. It's very odd to be able to go through a door with one length jigsaw blade, and even if you do, there'll be enough deflection in that blade where you would seriously need to be concerned with that very small margin that you have. If you get a jigsaw blade that's doing this all the way through the door, you could have a problem. Routers are very easy. You're going to need a plunge router, obviously. You're going to need to be able to drop the router down in and make your pass, and then drop it down again and make your pass. A 2-flute, 2.5-inch carbide bit plunge router. And then the real key here, and this is the easy part, which you can use a jigsaw for, is make yourself a template. Get a piece of 3/4-inch plywood, create the space, create the hole in the plywood, allowing for the collet, the collet that goes around the bit. Okay. Mark that off, cut that with a jigsaw, use a straight edge, clamp that down, get a perfect square or rectangle. Okay, 3/4 inches thick enough generally to allow for the height of a collet on a router. I like to make it so that I can flush it to the bottom of the door and to the side so that I don't have to think about the vertical layout of it, where I can just square it off, clamp it down 4 times, because that you're putting a lot of pressure when you use a router. You don't want the template obviously to move at all. So if you're doing 3-foot doors, I'd cut me a piece of plywood, 3/4 plywood that was not regular plywood, like a birch face plywood, something that's not going to be wavy at all. You don't want your router bit to be doing this over your template at all. Something smooth face. So if I was doing a series of 3-foot doors, I'd get a 35 and 3/4 inch or 36, whatever the net door size is. I would get it flush to the bottom, and I would mark up from the bottom of that template where the louver needed to fall from the top of the door to the center line, or however that was going to be, and just simply square it on there and be very, very careful if it's going to be centered in the door, and it almost always is, to get that right in the center. And always be very, very careful to mark what is the top of your template and what is the bottom of your template. Unless you're going to make it completely symmetrical where it doesn't matter, mark it. You don't want to grab it, flip it to find out that the template was 1.5 inches, towards the top than it was the bottom when you were margining off the bottom. then you've got a series of doors, and a couple louvers are, you know, doing like that because the vertical, the bottom rail dimension is not adequate. Now, question for a lot of people comes in: what should be the size of a louver, depending on the size of the door? First of all, if there's a requirement for CFM, that's going to dictate how big of a louver that you go. Generally, you're going to want to have at least 6 inches from the edge of the door to where your cut is going to start. Okay. When you get below that amount, you could be in violation of the manufacturer's warranty of the door. You don't want to do that at all. A bottom rail of 10 inch is fairly common. There's no set rules on any of this, except that, again, consider your manufacturer's door warranty in terms of how what's the minimum dimension for a cutout from the edge of the door, both styles and the bottom rail, or the top rail if you're doing a full louver, or 2 louvers, very common. Keep in mind what sort of hardware conflict that you might have. If you're running surface vertical rod exit devices, you don't want to have a very small style, and you don't have ample room to get your vertical rod installed. If you've got kick plates, you're going to want to make sure that you've got no conflict between where the louver gore is going to go and where you're going to install your kick plates. Outside of that, if you have any questions on the installation, please feel free to reach out to me. I've done it countless times, and that way works for me very well. Being lazy by nature can help you sometimes find the, what I think is the, an easy, the path of least resistance sort of way to go about manufacturing this stuff. Now, the manufacturer E-Zee Set, they are a full line provider of all things wood product related, like louvers and vision frames. They do vision frames for wood doors without glass. With glass, you're going to do typical tempered glass and then a variety of decorative glasses as well. They have been in business for a very long time, and I believe that they are at least second generation there. Very nice people, very easy to work with. Their quality is always excellent. There's never any problem with that. Very nimble on their feet. They can get things done fairly quick. For those core only sort of louvers, you would definitely be looking at providing your own sort of molding for that. E-Zee Set does manufacture some molding that you might be able to use for your application. Maybe, maybe not. You have to determine if that's going to work for you. And as I look through the rest of the technical information on the louver, it tells me that we've discussed everything important about louvers in general. You can count on a very good quality product from E-Zee Set every single time. Their material is always made to order. They don't build stuff to stock generally because of the custom nature of what they do. You should allow 2 weeks for material to ship, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit faster. You might have just 6 12 by 12s and they can just get them going real quick, or you might have some odd stuff, or you might send your order in at the busiest time of the year as well. So just allow ample time to get the manufacturing of this material done. If you have any questions on wood louvers, E-Zee Set the manufacturer, installation, application, specification, please feel free to reach out. I'm familiar with the product, and it's a pleasure being a distributor for E-Zee Set just because of how good they are at what they do. Thank you very much.